Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, August 26, 2019 meeting of the Board of Selectmen, Cemetery Commissioners, Highway Commissioners. First order of business is please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Greetings, everyone. First order of business is the minutes of August 12th, 2019. What is the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the minutes of August 12, 2019 as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept as presented. Any changes or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Next up, we have executive minutes of August 12, 2019. Chair will entertain a motion to accept but not to release as the issue is ongoing.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Joseph,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Siganevich. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
One abstention, I wasn't here. I'll vote to approve not release, but I wasn't here.
Mr. Marcy has
Exactly.
voted to approve and not release. Under appointments, resignations, I believe we have none. Public comments, citizen comments. Anyone wishing to be heard on an issue that is not on the agenda and does not require a vote of the board, now come forward. We have none. Town Administrator's report, I defer to Mr. Ruda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. I wanted to keep my report brief this week. Well, we did receive a lot of inquiries about the Triple E spraying that's going on. So, with the board's permission, I'm going to read some informational material so at least those who are watching at home can get it. Those who are not able to access it online or through the other multiple sources that are available. So the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, DPH, that's the Department of Public Health, is responsible for making the call for spraying. It's part of the state's response plan, and spraying is instituted when there is a high risk for human disease. The pesticide used is Anvil 10+10. It's a product that has been extensively tested and used extensively in both aerial and ground spraying. The two main ingredients are sumithrin and piperonal butoxide. Sumithrin is an ingredient that is similar to the natural components of the chrysanthemum flower, which is also found in other pesticide products used indoors, in pet shampoos and tick control treatments. It's rapidly inactivated and decomposes with exposure to light and air, with a half-life of less than 1 day in the air and on plants. In soil, it degrades rapidly. It's been proven to be extremely effective in killing mosquitoes worldwide for over 20 years. It serves to increase the ability of sumithrin to kill mosquitoes. The product is registered by the EPA and in Massachusetts for this use. It was used in previous aerial applications for mosquito control in 2006, 2010, and 2012. It is also used by some of the mosquito control projects for ground applications. It's also used in other states, including New York, New Jersey, Illinois, Delaware, North Carolina, Arkansas, Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, and Texas. The U.S. EPA has evaluated these pesticides for their safety and has determined that they do not pose an unreasonable risk to birds or mammals if used according to the product label directions. Anvil and other similar pesticides are toxic to land-dwelling and water-dwelling invertebrates such as dragonflies, beetles, and to fish. There is a less risk to fish in larger ponds than in smaller ones, and the risks to large natural water bodies are minimal. However, people may want to cover small ornamental fish ponds in their yard during the night of spraying, which is going to happen tonight. These fish ponds can be uncovered in the morning after spraying has been completed. There are no risks at all to drinking water. Aerial spraying is not expected to have any impacts on surface water or drinking water. Surface drinking water sources are mapped, and an aerial spraying will not occur over these water supply and reservoirs. So when they spray tonight, they're not going to go over any water supplies or reservoirs. Also, the product is rapidly inactivated and decomposes in sunlight and air and does not dissolve easily in water. And it's broken down into microorganisms in streams and water bodies that receive sunlight. Therefore, residues in water would not be expected Because of these characteristics and the fact that spraying does not occur over drinking water supply reservoirs, exposure through drinking water is not expected. There are no health risks expected during or after spraying. There is no evidence that aerial spraying of Anvil 10+10 will exacerbate certain health conditions such as asthma or chemical sensitivity. There are no precautions that the public should take prior to aerial spraying. There are no restrictions on consuming fruits and vegetables from home gardens or farms. The U.S. EPA has established a tolerance acceptable level for the product that allows wide area mosquito application on food crops, fodder crops, pasture, and grazing areas. The application is not expected to leave a detectable residue on food crops, I'm almost done, pastures, or forage crops. Livestock may graze in treated areas following the application. As always, consumers should rinse any homegrown or purchased fruits and vegetables with water before preparation or consumption. And finally, the Mass DPH does not anticipate negative impacts on honeybee colonies. Any further questions about aerial spraying can be directed to MDAR Crop and Pest Services at 617-626-1700. And for the most updated information on triple E risk, contact the DPH Division of Epidemiology at 617-983-6800 or visit DPH website at mass.gov/DPH/mosquito. mass.gov/DPH/mosquito. Okay.
So again, just before you go any further, just to repeat,
Nope.
not the whole thing.
Yeah.
Contact number would be for MDR Crop and Pest at 617-626-1700 or at the before-mentioned website at mass.gov. We can provide information from our office, but those are your best, any questions, those are your best avenues.
Mr. Chairman, I think that the fire chief wanted to mention how everybody has been alerted and the public's been alerted in this capacity as EMD.
I just wanted to make sure, did you all get the notification, was it Friday? The Board of Health and Michelle called me. We had Paul send out a rave. Did you guys get text messages and phone alerts?
Phone alert?
No text message?
No.
I got it.
You got a text message? All right,
I
good.
got both.
We're still working on building the system, but that was a good test of it. So I just wanted to ask it. Did anybody in the audience get it from town? Okay.
Right. Thank you, Chief.
All right, if, for the people in the audience and you guys, again, if you need help getting your cell phones on, call this, get a hold of the station. I'll put you in touch with Paul, the assistant chief, and we'll get you put in the system. And if you're having trouble getting on a computer, it's real easy. We'll walk you right through it.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief.
I cancel them. Mr. Chairman, while I was gone last week on vacation, Michelle had the opportunity to attend the ABCC seminar, as she's the one who is responsible to assist the public in preparing liquor licenses and so forth, and submits that paperwork to this board. She was updated, and she wanted to give you a quick update on that.
Okay. I attended the ABCC outreach on Thursday, August 22nd in Shrewsbury. Ralph Sacramone, who's the executive director, along with Ryan Melville, licensing supervisor, facilitated the event. The ABCC recently launched a new website, which is intuitive and really easy to use for all licensees. Application for new licenses, renewals, and transfers were discussed, as well as new features on their site. A representative from the Department of Industrial Accidents discussed the need for all license holders to provide the town with workers' comp insurance, as well as the state compliance requirements to have unemployment insurance. It was very informative. I learned a lot.
And she was able to pick up on something that we had missed on an application that's coming up tonight as a result of that seminar, so
Yeah.
it's already proving dividends.
Great. Perfect. Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
And then, thank you. There was, Mr. Chairman, there were some additional streetlights on our original work order. The work order has been completed for almost a month now. The additional streetlights that didn't make it onto the original work order have been ordered, and the work will be completed over the course of the fall. There's 5 or 6, I think, right? So those who are still waiting for the streetlights that have been added, hasn't been forgotten. We're on it. They've been ordered. They'll be installed over the course of the next 6 weeks or so.
Thank you.
And then finally, the Sheriff's Department will be providing some inmate labor for us this Friday and the following Friday to clean up around this, a lot of the weeds and the overgrown brush up in the, what I like to refer to as the corral on the upper parking lot and around the playground area. And so we'll have them for a few inmates for the next 2 Fridays to help offset some of the workload for the Highway Department. And you might have noticed on the signboard, Mr. Chairman, that the month of September, we're going to be doing some smoke testing. I think we alluded to it, but when we get a specific date, we will put a specific date up on the signboard. And I'm almost thinking that maybe we'll ask the fire chief to put out another rave alert so that as the smoke is drifting through the neighborhoods, nobody gets
Too alarmed.
too alarmed.
No pun intended.
So that's all I have.
And again, the smoke testing, I think George referenced at our last meeting.
Stormwater.
Right. You'll do it in your report later? We can do it right now if you want.
We've scheduled the smoke testing to be September 9th. The areas are going to be starting at West Main Street, Airport Road, Dudley Hill Road, that area there. Then we'll go off and venture off in other areas after that. I'll be with the sewer department. A few of our guys will be assisting them too, also to help if anybody has concerns. If they see any smoke coming out, sometimes residents come out, so we'll be there to help out. I'll be also notifying everybody when and what we're doing at what time. Everybody's aware. We are going to go on that rave. We're also going to be posting on the cable access, and I have I'm working on the main screen of the cable TV channel 192 to have a breakdown of some questions commonly asked during smoke testing. We're trying to get that on. It's like a 2-page thing. People can reference through that and understand what's going on, what we're looking for, where we might see smoke come out of, things like that. So we're trying to get that going too.
Right. And George, if you can coordinate with our office, they can do it on the Twitter page and all that too.
Yeah. I was gonna put the signboards out with the, but I think the signboard in the town hall is gonna be well enough for that, and all the information in the right should take care of everything else. You can always call the offices if anybody has any questions.
Perfect. Thanks, George.
Thank you, George.
Any questions for the administrator on his report? Except as presented. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, George.
Next up, we have Around Town. None tonight, but with the fall season around the corner, vacations are over, we're gonna really push to crank that up again. We have a license and permit, common victual license, Forever Golf LLC, 184 West Main Street, Dudley, Mass. Owner, Ronald Lukasevich. Is that correct? Now, is this public hearing or just,
That's part of his, he's going for a liquor license.
he needs this first?
No, it's part, they usually get them together.
Right. So we're gonna just handle that tonight, and then we'll worry about the liquor.
It's up to you.
We'll hold it off and do it with the, on the public hearing. All right, we're gonna hold it off and do them together. The public hearing, is that okay? So, we have another public hearing scheduled for us. It's a poll hearing from National Grid, number 28591221. Permission to install one SO pole on Sunrise Shore Road. National Grid to install a midspan pole, 40-foot Class 2, between poles 5 and 6 along Sunrise Shore Road in order to provide new service to a house number 19. Pole to be installed approximately 120 feet southeast from existing pole 5, and I declare the public hearing open. Good evening. Can you just state your name for our record, please? And
Diego Villarreal, I'm an engineer with National Grid.
nice to meet you.
Welcome.
So, you guys are looking to install a pole between 2 existing poles?
Correct. That's it's approximately 120 feet from existing pole 5, and like you said, it's to provide new service to house number 19.
Okay. I know the highway superintendent would like to speak, so at this time I'm going to have the highway superintendent come up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I looked at the location of this pole today. The marker is clearly in between 5 and 6. The only thing I didn't like about it is it's about a foot closer to the roadway than the rest of the poles. And it seems to me the reason they did that is because there's a tree right there, right where the, right.
Yeah.
If we can have that tree removed,
Okay.
if National Grid would take that tree down and get that pole back to, in line with the other ones, that'd be great.
We
that-
can definitely look into it and remove that tree.
It's about a 10-inch tree, and then there's a dead 3-inch tree
Okay.
next
So
to
we
it.
want them both, Eddie.
Take
Clearly
that-
want them
they're
both down.
They're both on town property.
Right. Mr. Joseph?
How close, with the tree in place, how close will the pole be to the road?
About a foot.
And how close normally, in this example, poles 5 and 6? How
Ideal-
close are they?
Ideally, they're about 2 feet away, because the wing on the plow,
Yeah.
so if you're riding the edge of the plow, the wing will actually hit the pole. So that's why we like to get that 2 feet from the edge of the road over, unobstructed.
Okay, I hate to take trees down, but
Well, one's dead and one's half dead.
I don't
And
mind
then
that.
they're
I don't
not
mind the
hel-
dead one,
They're not healthy trees at all.
okay? Take your word for it, you know that.
Well, plus Sunrise Shores is kind of narrow anyway. That's one of our,
No, it's pretty wide,
It is.
actually.
oh, at that point, but then you go up and it kind of gets,
Yeah.
so we want to be as careful as possible up there too.
You can tell it's scooted over because of that tree, and it, like I said, the tree is unhealthy. It's, very little growth on it, and
Okay.
Any other board member questions for the applicant? Any questions for the highway superintendent? Anybody from the public here to speak on this issue? So before I close the public hearing, it's a pretty simple condition, just to be clear, we'll grant approval conditional upon both those trees being removed. So if somehow your boss says, we're not gonna move the trees, we're not gonna give you permission to put the pole there.
Okay. Sounds fair.
Is that fair, Paul? Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Yeah, if you want, go up there, because they won't be up there. Okay. So, Mr. Administrator, before we close the public hearing, any questions?
I have no questions. We'll make sure it gets done according to the board's vote.
All right, so at this point, I'll close the public hearing. 6:40, no, 6:53. So we'll call to a vote. We're gonna make the vote conditional upon the trees coming down? So Chair will entertain a
Sounds
motion
good.
So
to,
moved, Mr. Chair.
moved by Mr. Marcy,
Second.
second by Mr. Johnson. Any other conditions anybody wants to put on it?
With the trees coming down, that pole's going to be even with the other 2 poles. I
Right.
just want to make sure that's in there too, because if they take down the trees and leave the pole where they were going to put it, doesn't make sense.
Right, no, obviously the,
The pole, you gotta go with,
I just want to make sure.
yeah, no, making sure.
will
And
be
ju-
installed in line with, the two rotation poles.
Excellent.
in terms, Mr. Chairman, of removing the tree that's been taken down, is that something Vinnie is gonna do or National Grid's gonna
Oh,
do?
National Grid will do it.
You're gonna remove the tree right off the property? Okay, all right,
Then he's going to mark them with X's.
yeah,
They'll take them down, done.
because we have had circumstances where the
Right.
trees came down and remained there,
And
so,
again, the assumption would be that they're gonna cut that as close to the ground as possible, not gonna go back there and see like a
yeah.
4-foot so.
I just want to be sure, Mr. Chairman, that the motion, which was so moved, that the motion clearly states the request as printed on our agenda. You know how I am.
Yep.
After we're all long gone, future boards of selectmen may be looking at, what was that motion about? And I want to be sure that it's clearly printed in the minutes.
Okay.
I so moved on what Mr. Chairman said.
Right. So, again, right before I call to the vote, so, how about just reword it a little bit slightly to say that the removal of the tree has to be approved by the highway superintendent? That way he can go up there and make sure they don't leave. We had issues before with stumps being left up, trunks being left up, you know what I'm saying? So, is it okay with the mover in the second, that we just include language that the highway superintendent must approve of the end result?
Tree removal.
Right.
Yep.
You good with that, Vinnie? Sir, you good with that? Hearing anything else? All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Open up our second public hearing, as mentioned before, all alcohol liquor license application, Forever Golf LLC, 184 West Main, Dudley, Mass. Owner Ronald Lukasevich. I declare the public hearing open at 6:54. Now you can come up.
Signatory, signatory.
6:56. Mr. Administrator, what do we have here?
Mr. Chairman, this is an application to use the space next to Sully's Dog Shack, correct?
Correct.
And turn it into a venue for indoor golf,
Oh, the former
the
gymnasium,
former gymnasium.
Dudley Fitness?
It was, yes, Dudley Fitness, and we're going to turn it into 4 indoor golf simulators and a small little bar.
No food, just snacks and
Yeah, there'll be snacks there that I'll provide, but most of the food will be coming from Sully's, and I'm going to look into Jimmy's Pizza across the street for delivery.
And so I believe that the police chief has had the opportunity to speak with the applicant. Is that correct, sir? Well, he's looked at the proposal, and he has no objection to anything proposed. He would like to hear more about the parking situation, as would I, if there's an overflow area, because that is a small lot.
Mr. Chairman, before you go into that, would you explain clearly again the location we're talking about?
It is 184 West Main Street.
I know the address.
It's the Dudley Fitness that was located right next to Sully's Dog Shack in the same building.
Same building.
And it's going to become an indoor?
It's a golf, there are different booths with golf simulators at each station, and then a small putting green inside.
Okay. So you're going to answer, or someone's going to address the issue on parking, but I will tell you, I have reservations because, and maybe I'm old school, I would think that the majority of people who will be going to an indoor golf would be underage. Is that a correct assumption or incorrect?
I can't really agree with that assumption. I visited many facilities throughout the state, and most of the golfers are generally older. Golf is kind of a dying, I wouldn't call it a dying sport, but it seems to be more of a over 35, very popular sport.
Okay.
The younger generation, I'm not saying they're not playing golf, but it's not as popular as it once was back in the day.
Okay, I'll have more questions, but I don't want to, I'll wait.
I want to hog it all.
I'll wait.
So there's no proposed restrictions of age? It's,
No, there isn't.
Well, to be clear too, like, we're not talking about like an indoor miniature golf type place. It's a simulator. I've been in them. You can put in golf
Yeah.
courses. You can pretend you're playing
Exactly.
Pebble
So-
Beach, for example.
So basically, it's going to be 4 simulator bays. I have 3 in a row, and then I have 1 on the side, which would be more for if someone wanted to give lessons, or a club pro in the area wanted to give lessons in a separated area. I have a room separated for that, with cameras and, to analyze your swing. It's a small facility. Most indoor golf facilities are 8 to 10 simulators. This was going to be on the smaller side. Sully's operates mostly breakfast and lunch. I would think my business would be more of like after lunch and towards the afternoon, later evening hours. So the parking is really not an issue. I do have some parking in the back that I can create. So, working with Sully's, I really don't, I had a fitness there for 8 years. I had 400 members. I never had an issue with parking. So I really don't think parking's gonna be an issue.
So this is for all alcohols. So, Jonathan, we're going to treat this like a bar license, like a bar
Correct.
license.
Correct.
So what kind of space you looking for a bar with
My bar.
4 stools in front of it, you know?
Yeah, I'm gonna have approximately 8 stools in front of it. It's gonna be in an area where I'll have a small putting green and just an area where people can order some drinks or whatever they like to while they're playing golf.
So have you done your proposed layout to the building inspector yet? Has he improved?
I have, yeah.
Okay. Oh, is that what you get? Okay. Any other questions while we're waiting on
Uh,
Mr. Joseph?
What do you anticipate the indoor capacity, and I understand the facility, and they can work on their driving and work on their putting. It'll be simulated, things like that, is that
Yeah,
correct?
that's correct.
All right. What do you anticipate the capacity will be, A, of the facility, and B, of the area that you propose to set aside for the consumption of alcohol?
Well, that's a good question. It's not considered to be like a local bar where people are gonna come in and have drinks. I mean, it's, people are gonna be hitting in the mats, there's a lot, little noise of a golf ball hitting a mat. So I don't think people are gonna be, wanna have a glass of wine and listen to balls hitting a mat. Basically, the alcohol is for people who are, wanna have a few drinks playing around the golf. The capacity, I have 4 simulators. I would think, I would say 2 to 3 a bay probably be the average. So you're looking at maybe 12 golfers and maybe a couple people sitting at the bar. So, 15, 18 people. I don't really see it being, a place where people are gonna come and, whoop it up for the night. It's just mostly people working on their golf game, and if they wanna have a few drinks while they're playing on a Friday night, something
And
I'd
I
like to
guess
provide.
I think my last question is, why all alcohol instead of beer and wine? It does not look like a very large facility.
Well, I asked myself that question before I applied. I think there's a lot of golfers out there that would like to have a nice glass of scotch if they're playing 18 holes of golf. And there's golfers that would like to have just a Miller Lite draft. Maybe there's an extreme array of golfers from each spectrum, and I would like to provide what other facilities are providing in the state, and most of them have a full liquor license. And my competitors, I would like to be at par with them.
Thank you.
So, in our packet, do we have, usually have a letter from Nelson, do we have one? Stating that he reviewed,
No, he doesn't have to do that without, he
No?
does the class 2 license.
but usually doesn't he, in the past, I know when we had the sprinkler law go into effect, we had reviews for interior layouts and stuff.
That's part of the investigation. He'll do it.
Sweet, oh, that comes after? So your diagram shows 6 stools, you said maybe 8, is that because you might
Yeah,
put a couple around the corner, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't remember if I had 6 to 8 on the
Yeah, yeah.
drawing, but yeah, approximately 6 to 8 stools.
So your intention isn't to fill like this in-between space with tables afterwards, you know what I mean? Because,
Well, I'm gonna have a small putting green there, and then I probably will have a couple of tables for people who are waiting to play. People rent it for hourly, some 2 hours, some 1 hour, some half hour.
Right.
So instead of, people standing, I have some tables for them instead.
any questions from the applicant, from Mr. Barsi?
Yeah, I love this idea. I've done some of these things. Think about some corporate events for local businesses. I've done some of the, like they have one in Manhattan on Chelsea Piers. It's a much bigger scale, and it's an outside one and inside. But they have a bar there too, and I thought that was good. What I like about this is it makes Dudley a destination for something. That's always a good thing. Gets people coming in, buying gas, buying hot dogs at Sully's, and it just kind of benefits most people. So I like this idea.
Mr. Siganovich?
Parking, I know, what was the police chief's concern, overflow parking?
You want to hear more about what you would propose to do for overflow parking?
Well, like I said before, most of my business will be probably later afternoon and evening, and Sully's serves breakfast and lunch. so most of her parking is done by 2 o'clock. I expect most of my business to be after lunch and towards the evening, so I really don't see it being an issue. I have a little more space in the rear of the building that I'm going to make a few more parking spots for a couple of employees, for actually Sully's and myself. I really don't see it being an issue with only 4 simulators. It's a very small venue.
That would be part of Nelson too, right? Nelson will go out there.
You'd have to look at the
Right,
parking.
he'll evaluate how many spaces. You know, I just want to echo Mr. Massey too. I don't think we're being unjust with our questions. I would like to see a new business. It's something different. It's something we don't have around here, and hopefully.
Chairman, the fire chief was.
Yep, fire chief.
I just wanted to say, yeah, we've worked with Ron quite a bit in the past. We did all when he first put the gym in, he owns the whole plaza, so he upgraded all the fire protection. He worked well with us. He did everything we asked him to do, so I don't see it as being an issue. I think he's got a good reputation, so.
So that existing fire suppression and protection would be adequate, or you'd have to change it if you tell him, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have to talk to Nelson too, on what the posted occupancy is, but I'm sure if there's 12 to 15 people, that falls well within the occupancy.
Well, it's a good-sized space. It's 30, it's
Yeah.
square footage, gross square footage is 3,500. That's a pretty big
Right.
space.
But like I said, it's got all updated fire systems in it.
Perfect. Any questions from the audience? Anybody that was notified or interested? Any further questions from the board? Mr. Administrator, you good?
I'm good, thank you.
Public hearing closed at 7:08. It's the board's pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant an all alcohol liquor license application for Forever Golf LLC to be located at 184 West Main Street, Dudley, Mass. For owner Ron Lukasevich.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further questions or concerns? Seconded. Mr. Johnson. Hearing none, all in favor, state aye.
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 Unanimous?
Gotta go back.
Right. So while you're sitting right there, Ron, we're gonna go back up to the common victual license, Forever Golf LLC, 184 West Main Street, Dudley, Mass. Same owner, does not require a public hearing. What is the board's pleasure?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Mr. Massey, second by Mr. Sigenovich to grant. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Good luck.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Maybe someone taking a chance. I like that.
Old business. Anybody have any old business that did not make it onto the agenda that needs to be discussed? Hearing none. New business. Dudley Conservation Land Trust. Request for memorial in memory of Chet Kalissa, a rain garden at the new Dudley Fire Station.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask the fire chief to come up as well?
Chief, mind coming up?
Good evening. My name is Paul Wheelock. I'm president of Dudley Conservation Land Trust.
I'm Dave Harrigan, Vice President, Dudley Conservation Land Trust.
As you know, Chet Kalissa passed away, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months ago. And a lot of his closest friends donated monies to the Land Trust in his memory. So the Land Trust, at their last board meeting, wanted to do something for the town in his memory. So one of the things we came up with is maybe we could do a rain garden in that swale that's in the front of the new fire station. So we're here to find out whether, the board is good with that.
I'm going to defer to the administrator and the fire chief because I wasn't on that planning committee, and I don't know if that swale is, I know what the swale's for. I don't know if we can alter
Well,
that.
I'm gonna talk about it right now. The DEP is very specific about the swale. You have to be careful. There is certain vegetation that's allowed, but it's on a list. So I talked to the architect today. I talked to him last week, but I talked to him again today. He is gonna contact the engineer, and I should have a list of the vegetation tomorrow that's allowed in there, but we have to stick to that list because they're very strict. If we don't, we could be looking at fines. So, they can do it, absolutely, and I was all on board with it, and I'm still on board with it. It's just I want to have a copy of that list before I say okay, but there should be no issue as soon as I get a hold of that list.
All right, so Paul, would you guys mind if we defer any action tonight till the chief gets his information?
Oh, no problem. This, we just had a board meeting last week, so this is all been happening pretty fast.
Right.
So this is gonna definitely be a work in progress, so, we'd like to maybe try and get it done for the opening. There's gonna be a grand
Yeah, I was
opening or
gonna,
something?
I might as well say it right now while I'm up here. I was gonna wait till the end, but, the ribbon cutting grand opening is gonna be October 19th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'm actually working with the Chamber of Commerce too to get constituents here, like the senator and a representative and some other people, and they're gonna help us set up a lot of things to kind of make it, put a nice touch to it. So 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on October 19th, it's a Saturday. Trying to have a look, get some food there as well. Obviously, we'll have some speakers. A couple of you guys can speak and some other people too. So it ought to be good.
All right, so with the board's pleasure, we're just gonna, oh, Paul, sorry.
Yeah, two questions. Paul, could you explain to us who don't know what a rain garden, how you envision it? What is it, a rain garden? And number two,
Well,
and then number two is, do you have any concerns, or are there any specific precautions you'd have to take because of salt and sand, snow plowing around that area?
I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really an expert on rain gardens. We have two other board members that are master gardeners, and they know more about this than
Okay.
I do. I have a short article that I printed up, that was in the Telegram and Gazette, if the board wants to read it. If, I can give you each a copy of it. If you don't learn anything, at least maybe it can put you to sleep at night or something.
Can't be any worse than the town administrator's report.
Oh, I can make those worse if you want.
Wait till next time.
I meant just this week.
That was a short one. Wow.
That was, yeah, keep it
It went
short.
right over me and onto you. I like that.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Recycling rain.
That's cool.
So, Paul, I'm just gonna, I just skimmed it, obviously fairly quickly. It's a Telegram and Gazette article, and correct me if I'm wrong, the gist of it is how to use rainwater to recycle it, to help a garden.
Well, the basic idea of it is you want to get the water down into the ground instead of running it off
Into the
and
drain.
into a brook or into a lake or
Right.
some, because it'll clean itself in the ground.
Right.
Where, if it runs off into a pond, it's not really, it'll clean itself, but it would take a lot longer. Another board member and I went out to the last Green Valley, the new visitors center that they built in Worcester, and they have two big, large rain gardens in the front, and we helped do the planting at them. And it's basically the same kind of thing. There's parking lots, there's a road right there, the rain garden, and a parking lot right next to it too, and entrances on both sides. So it's basically, the gist of it is the same kind of thing. And actually, we have a plan, the plan of the plants that we used at that garden. So, we'll probably take the information off of those plans and
Really neat,
use it
creative
here.
idea.
That is neat.
There's a couple links for the people at home. Obviously, this is on the Telegram and Gazette website, this article. But there's a Rain Garden Network, oneword.com, and there's a Common Waters, oneword.org, that people can go on and get some further information. And it looks like they quoted extensively in this article, so be a good source for people, resource. And if you can coordinate with the chief with the list of things you've already used, and he can see, and you get your list if anything meshes up, and,
Yeah, like I said, this is gonna be work, we're gonna have to work with the chief and,
Yep.
maybe do a plan and,
no, I think it's a great idea.
we don't wanna, also, I just have another question that, is it, we have a small plaque that we had given Chet, years ago, and, now that he's gone, the thing is just gonna, is it okay with the town if we, put it on a small rock there? Is that allowed in town, or?
As long as DEP's fine with it, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's allowed in town, or is that,
No, that'd be fine.
Fine with me.
Small memorial. I mean, nobody deserves it more than Chet. We all know that.
Mr. Chairman, through you, what were we thinking in terms of ongoing maintenance for the memorial? Would it be a conservation land trust maintained site, or?
well, yeah, we can try it.
The only reason I'm asking is if it's too complicated, we can make sure we're equipped to maintain it as well. If
Well, it's not gonna be that, it may just require some weeding, that's about it.
Well,
I don't see, there's a little flat spot around the top. I think that
Yeah.
will stay as grass. The plants would probably go more down inside the swale, so. I don't know if we're gonna keep the grass and just plant in the grass, or, use stone or whatever. Like I said, we're gonna have to figure a lot of this
Right.
stuff out.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Yeah, like I said, Paul, we certainly agree with the concept, and just as long as, like the chief said, engineer and DEP say, God bless, then God bless.
and Mr. Chairman, if
Mr. Ruda.
if there's any issue with DEP, I think we can probably find another site, maybe even here at the
Right.
municipal complex.
I would definitely find something somewhere.
Well, we had a second option, was that we could do a butterfly garden someplace in town too, so one or the other.
Right, right, Paul.
But I think this would be nice, because it's, it would dress up the front of the new fire station,
Good spot.
with some color, and,
Excellent.
we'd be doing something that's, will benefit the community.
Perfect.
One more question, is it like annuals, planted yearly,
Oh,
or
they'd be
perennials?
No, it'd be
Okay.
perennials.
All right, that's
we're not
probably a
gonna
better
do
idea.
annuals. That's- That'd be out of the question.
A little more work than weeding then.
Annuals would be just that.
And then money, if you-
One.
No, but then they
Yeah,
have to come back.
they're not free, right?
they're not free, is right.
Any further questions or comments?
No, nice,
All right, guys,
nice to see
just-
some
I know
color
what you
over
want.
there.
Just keep
What's
working
that?
together. We'll work with the chief and Jonathan and the administrator, and we'll get it on the agenda again.
All
I
right,
think it'll work out fine, we just gotta make sure we
Right.
follow the regs, that's all. I think it'll be fine.
Excellent.
well, it's, this is not a new thing for us. They're doing it everywhere.
Right, we're not inventing the wheel.
Yeah, so, just gotta get the right plants and, the right concept, so.
Sounds good to me.
All right,
Thanks,
so,
guys.
Thank you, guys.
we're gonna try it, we're gonna shoot to get it done for the opening, but there's no guarantees, so we'll do the best we can.
Paul, push comes to shove, you can have a little table set up off to work with the chief, something with Chet's plaque on it if you want. No, seriously, I think at the grand opening, if there's not a planting. We'll
Thank
get
you.
a-
Future site of.
Yeah.
right?
Next up, we have DMA Holdings LLC, proposed adult use marijuana retail cultivator manufacturer at 35 and 37 Chase Ave, Dudley, Mass. I call the applicants up. Please identify yourselves and welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Nick Adamopoulos. I'm from Lakeshore Legal in Webster, and I'll be acting as local counsel. This is Joe Velatico. He is a resident of Webster and Dudley growing up. He's also a co-founder of DMA Holdings. And this is Bobby Nichols, who is the commercial real estate guru for this project. He also handles the construction operations, and ultimately I've dropped off a packet for the Selectmen on Friday. My proposal was to kind of just give a brief overview of the information in there, and then we can answer any questions that you have at the end. Ultimately, we're proposing that this project be located at 35 and 37 Chase Avenue, which is the former Ethan Allen building. And that building has been zoned by town vote to host adult recreational use businesses. We would be seeking approval for 3 different licenses. We would not be seeking any sort of license for municipal. It would all be adult use. The first license would be for 100,000 square foot cultivation inside the factory right now. We'd also be seeking a manufacturing license and a retail adult use marijuana license in a 5,000 square foot building that is already on the property. I did put together a brief summary of the licensure process in there. I can go over that if you'd like, but I did go over that with the town administrator during one of our meetings. It is a lengthy process. The town will be heavily involved if this were to move forward. Prior to any application going to the Cannabis Commission, there'd be several approvals that we'd have to get from the town prior to that application being submitted. For a brief overview of the business, as I said, Joe Velatico is a former resident of the Webster Dudley area. One of the key points for this project coming to Dudley was that he saw this as a great area to grow a business while bringing a benefit to the town of Dudley and bringing meaningful new job opportunities to the area. There's large knowledge of information in the cannabis industry that's coming with this project from both Mr. Vladico, Mr. Nichols, and the other partners that are coming in. They have experience out west, and Mr. Vladico is also involved in a cannabis growth operation out in Colorado. It's a large-scale operation, so the cultivation, manufacturing, and retail is all being handled by experts in the field. They're going to bring in professionals. Like I said, they do have a network of individuals that they've worked with. So the people coming in to run this operation, to do the build-out, all have vast experience in other states. So that information and expertise will be coming here. And ultimately, DMA wants to make this operation a top-use adult marijuana business in the Commonwealth. For benefits to the town, we would be utilizing the current property. There'd be no change to the outside of that building beyond anything that's needed by regulations. So that would really just be lighting and some cameras. The historical nature of the building would be maintained. Everyone that's come in from this operation to see the building finds that they want to maintain that. Ultimately, this would hopefully be similar to Webster, where there's a 70,000 square foot grow that's been in town for 6 years now, and most people don't even know it's there. And we'll go over how some of the common issues that get raised at these meetings will be dealt with. There will also be a community host agreement that would be entered into. So town vote has already allowed for the town to recoup 3% tax on all retail sales. And then we would negotiate a yearly host agreement. Those agreements are normally 5 years in length. And per regulations, it shows how much a town could recoup per year from gross revenue generated from the operation. Further, DMA would work closely with any government officials and local residents to identify any other opportunities to give back to the local community, whether that's charitable donations or giving up some of their employees' time to help back in the community. I'm sorry. For job opportunities, this would generate somewhere between 200 to 300 new jobs. And DMA would also work closely with Nichols and other local universities concerning some job opportunities. So there's cultivators and growers and salespeople in the retail, but there's also numerous business opportunities and business jobs inside the office that Nichols graduates would be able to come into, or internship opportunities for kids maybe in the summertime or during the spring to work into. And further, any qualified Dudley resident would get hiring preference for an open job over another applicant. So as long as that Dudley resident met the qualifications, they would get that job against someone else that came in. I did indirect benefits to town, other stores, gas station, restaurants. They'd likely get indirect business from clients coming to DMA. I did speak to the police chief this morning. We'd want to work closely with the police department. In the write-up I gave you, there was mention of 1 DRE being paid for. Per the police chief, if this were to move forward, he'd want at least 2. Those are drug recognition experts, big push by Governor Baker to get those in place, and they would help address any DUI drug issues moving forward. Concerning common matters that get raised, odor, the build-out makes it entirely self-contained environment inside the factory. They'd also be utilizing a chlorine dioxide system, and there'd be carbon scrubbers put on the exhaust system so that there'd be minimal to no odor being put outside. The big issue that most people have in the back of their mind is traffic, because they saw it on the news when Leicester and I believe Northampton opened. I do want to point out that since those 2 opened, there's been no traffic issues with any of the other ones. It's kind of a common issue for those. There is 10 parking spots right now in front of the retail building. There's also an additional 150 to 200 spots on the property with room to expand if necessary. One of the areas that the chief of police raised today was that he'd want a tarred walkway from that bigger parking lot to the retail building, so that there'd be no foot traffic going onto the road or across the grass, which would be easily for us to take care of, so the chief is happy with that. Further, we would do appointment only to start, that could be put into the host agreement, that would control traffic. Most of these transactions are pretty quick. I do want to point out that Worcester opened up their first retail shop about a month and a half ago. They had a 6-month window in their host agreement for appointment only. And within the first month, the chief of police from Worcester went to the Cannabis Commission and said, take it off, there's no traffic issue that's been seen in this property whatsoever. So while most people think of the traffic that happened in Leicester, that's not really what we're seeing in any of these new facilities opening up. Electricity, it would be using about 10,000 amps of electricity. We did speak to National Grid. Electricity is across the street in the pole already. And DMA would have to just upgrade the transformers currently on the property at their own expense, so there'd be no further expense to the town there. Security is fully regulated by the Cannabis Commissions. We would work closely with the police department to make sure that they're happy with the cameras, the indoor facility, there'd be security on premises. Further, the security that would be put in there would go well beyond the regulations, so it would be even more secure than necessary. And there's two retail operations that are going to Webster. Oxford's already approved 2. Uxbridge has actually just taken off the limit of retail establishments that they can have in their town, because the amount of money that's being generated by these operations is tremendous to the town. I know I'm on the finance committee in Webster, and the expenses the town faces on a yearly basis far exceed the growth that the towns are normally looking at. And through the host agreement and through the other ways of this operation could give back, it would help at budget season. We'd be working closely with the building inspector, with you, with the police chief, the fire chief, making sure that anything that gets built out or goes forward to the state is 100% approved by everyone here before it ever goes to the state. Before we take any questions, ultimately what we'd be seeking today would be permission from you to hold what they call a community outreach meeting. We would get the names of abutters within 300 feet of the property. We would send them a certified letter stating the location and the time that we would hold this community outreach meeting. They have to get that at least 10 days prior. And we also have to put it in a local newspaper at least 14 days prior, so that the general community is well aware of it and will come forward to ask any questions they have. We would be putting that in the Webster Times. The public's welcome to come. We'd give a bigger presentation than we're giving today, take any questions that they have, answer anything that they have, and then we would come back before you to answer any further questions that you have, bring forth any more information that you guys needed for you. So that's kind of a brief summary of what's going in there. We can definitely, and certainly we'll answer any questions that you have, but ultimately we would just like to move forward to that community outreach meeting so that we can see and gather information from the community as a whole.
All right, before I take questions, Council, I'm going to give your clients a chance if they want to just introduce themselves a little bit,
Sure.
give a little background.
My name is Joe Velatico. I was born and raised in Webster, Mass. Along with me today is one of my partners, Malcolm Beers, who was actually born and raised in Dudley, grew up here for 9 years off 75 Tracy Road. We've been in the cannabis space for about 2 years now, and we've run a very big operation in Colorado that employs about 250 employees to date. So having the background and the knowledge to do this is something that we definitely have, and to try to bring it back to where somewhere where I grew up and somewhere where got me to where I'm at today is something that we're really trying to do. So for us to come here and try to employ 250 jobs or more, I think is something that could really bring something good to the community and to the town. And I'm happy that we can present to you guys today, and hoping that we can get to the community outreach meeting.
Mr. Nichols?
Bobby Nichols. I'm from California. I work with a company. We're the largest growers in the state of Washington. We've built large facilities like this. Again, on our side, on the professional front, we intend to bring a first-rate operation with the cohesiveness of the city and the powers to be. We will very much will use local talent in the build, and not from just an employment perspective, but also from the construction side. We build within, just like we've done in our other facilities. We feel like that's the best way to start the relationship and have that cohesiveness within the city and the residents. I come from a large city. I understand how that works and the economic side of it and the political side of it as well. We humbly come before you guys to let you know that we're bringing something that we believe has a pretty tremendous economic impact for the city, not from just a job side, but from the culture side of the business and the growth of, with your using the builders here, whether it be the mechanical, electrical, the plumbers, all local trades. And you can rest assured that when we get a chance to do this thing, it will be a first-rate operation, and we'll be happy to have to be in this town and to make a difference.
So, Counselor, just for a little background, you're talking about the 5,000 square foot. You're talking about that building, if you're facing the mill, it's kind of to the left where Tri-Valley used to be?
Yes.
Separate,
so
it's freestanding?
The brick building, it's not the
okay.
white home. It's
Right,
it's
so-
a brick building. It has a number 35 already
Right.
on it.
And the path you referred to would be between the house and the building, the actual factory. Come that
yes.
way, get them off, so they wouldn't be on Chase Ave on that bad corner.
Exactly, that's what the police chief was worried, that if we utilize that parking lot, that people wouldn't want to walk across the grass, they would use the road. So
Right.
there would definitely be a path put in there that would allow for foot traffic to go back and forth. Now, for the first 6 months to a year, if it's a host agreement, those 10 spots will 100% be adequate as the traffic goes in and out. I'm not sure how well you are aware of the regulations, but this isn't a bar, this isn't a liquor store. There's no signage that can be placed outside of these besides the name of the business.
Right.
You can't put any marijuana leaves outside, you can't put neon lights. You have an open sign. Any windows have to be tinted so that you can't see inside. Ultimately, unless you know it's there, you would just drive by and still think that it's the Ethan Allen factory that's been there, since 1864. There's going to be no change to the outside, and there'll be nothing that draws attention to those buildings.
Right, I would suggest too to anybody, take a ride by the facility in Webster and tell me from the road where it is. And go by Oxford, all they have is that one sign, the rest is just a nondescript frosted glass.
As
No
I
idea
did
what it
say,
is.
everyone knows about Leicester because it was on the news.
Because it was first.
Exactly. Everyone wanted to go there. They wanted to get to the first dispensary and retail shop. They wanted to get in line. They wanted to see how it was going to work. There's, I believe, over 60 now statewide, and if you turn on any channel of the news, you don't hear about them. As I said, Worcester opened up their first one, and within a month, the chief of police went to Boston and said, you can just take off the appointment only because there's no additional traffic we're seeing on these roads.
Right, there was an article in the Globe today, I think it was Brookline, they've been open 6 months, 5 months, it's 250,000 revenue generated, anticipated 1.5.
Uxbridge allowed for 2 retail shops in their town. As of last month, they are going to town meeting to take off the restriction for only 2 because they have so much interest in the town and the money coming into the town, the selectmen to say we can't say no to it. The towns need extra revenue, and this is a substantial way of getting a guaranteed payment every year that you can put towards town projects, and DMA is willing to make sure they give back to charitable endeavors in the town also.
So if things work out, you could have a bite to eat, play some golf, pick up your recreational and go home.
There you go.
Any questions from the board?
Hopefully.
Mr. Joseph?
No, I'm gonna wait, but I want to emphasize that the sequence is a meeting with us here tonight, a public meeting for the community, which more than likely will have to be scheduled in a larger room.
Yes.
And then another meeting with the Board of Selectmen, and then a negotiation of a host agreement, and then all of the approvals required in licensing by the state.
Yes, so once the host agreement has been entered into, you can then submit, there's 3 different applications that go to the Cannabis Commission. There's a management operations profile, an intent profile, and then background checks for all the players that have put in any financing or involved with the operation to start off with. Once that application goes in, the Cannabis Commission has at least 3 months to review the application
They actually come back to the town to make sure that a host agreement has been signed. And at that point, if they clear everything, we would get a provisional license. Once a provisional license is given, we would then go to the police chief, the fire chief, and the building inspector with the build-out plans. Once those build-up plans have been approved by everyone in town, we're gonna have to go to the state and have them approve the build-out plans before anything can get done inside those buildings. Once the build-out is complete, the state comes in, does a walkthrough to make sure that all the regulations have been met, that all the electrical and security procedures are in there. There's a computer system that tracks all the seeds, all the plants, where things are being shipped. They make sure that all those systems are up and going, and at that point, would you get the final okay. So ultimately, to the stage of even submitting the applications, we would have to do the community outreach meeting, come back here, and then if we get your okay at that point, then we would discuss with town council the parameters of a host agreement.
So we're looking at, this isn't gonna happen overnight, this is gonna be a process.
If I could venture to guess on if we were able to streamline all this, I would hope to get the community host outreach meeting done sometime in September. As I said, it has to be put in a paper at least 2 weeks before. We have to get the butters list, so if we are able to do it in September, it'd probably be towards the end of the month. Once that's done, we'd have to go back to the town administrator to get back on the agenda to come before you. And then we'd have to talk to town council. So our hope would be to get an application in sometime in November or December, which would give us a provisional towards the end of the winter or beginning of the spring, and let build-out happen at that point. And build-out would take, you know, the retail building would probably be built out first because it's the smallest portion. But once everything's up and done, it'd probably be a 6 to 12-month process before the whole building is built out the way that it needs to be built out. Because the regulations are very strict, and the operation has to be made in a certain way that this product is gonna be made the way that the producers are coming in to make it. They want it to be exactly like the product they're making out west, and to do that, they gotta make sure that the building's built the correct way.
Correct. Mr. Johnson, or Paul?
Yeah, like many people, I have a number of questions, but I'd rather wait until the community meeting.
Of course.
And ask my questions as a member of the community.
Okay.
I will tell you this, and I've said this to you in the past, that philosophically, I'm not opposed to it. But I'm not in favor of it unless and until you can prove to me personally that it's in Dudley's decent, good, profitable interests and still allow you folks to certainly make a living at what you're proposing to do here. But, in my mind, that's a high bar.
Okay.
Because if I sense an inkling that it's not good for Dudley, you'll hear about it,
Of course.
okay?
And we'll bring any information.
And I'll be straightforward on it.
Request for information that you'd like us to bring to the community outreach meeting to address those questions that you will have. You know, you can reach out to me and I'll make sure we have that information there for you so that we can get those answers that you need.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Jay?
I guess I've got a number of questions, probably need to be answered at a later time, but I think I have to do some more research, some questions about how close can it be to the nearest school, or, any of those are probably zoning type questions, or?
What's also in the state regs, though.
State regs,
It's
okay.
regulated, so it has to be, it can't be within 500 feet of any school or public park. It's already been zoned, so it falls within that criteria.
Good, okay.
And, it's kind of pushed back. Traffic concerns, really, because where it is, if people are coming, it's probably gonna come through really Connecticut or Webster because of the highway. It's pushed away from downtown, which is a great benefit of any traffic kind of going through the town.
I agree with Paul in a way. I'm gonna hold most of my questions. You guys answered some of mine, I appreciate. I'm gonna hold to the public, to the outreach meeting, but I am not fundamentally opposed to it, and as long as it falls under some of Paul's parameters, but in my mind, if it's a licensed, legal, regulated product, similar to alcohol or other things, as long as it meets the i's and dots the i's and cross the t's, I'm not opposed to going down there, at least the
Let me
road to
tell you,
continue this.
the regulations are,
Very stringent.
yeah.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Massey.
I ditto to what you just said, Mr. Chairman. Couple of things, just right off the top, people might be wondering, listening at home. Are you currently looking at any other locations to do this? Or this is like the one you picked?
So, that's a good question. There's several other locations that we could have looked at in the state of Massachusetts, right? And to answer, Paul, your question, Steve, your concerns, we could have went to several other towns, and we could have spoken to several other towns. There's no town that plays kind of closer to me to where I can kind of give back to. I mean, I grew up in Webster, Mass. I went to the schools here, been in this business long enough to know what it has to offer to the community, and exactly why we're here presenting today. So, no, the answer is no, we have not presented to any other town, and we probably will not present to any other town, because this actually is where we want to be, so.
So we're not, we're not competing with anybody.
You are not competing with anybody, no.
Kinda, yeah. Two, you mentioned building out the retail aspect of it first. I always envision this, the grow comes first, and then see how it goes, and then a retail. If you build a retail store first, would you like bring product from out west to sell there first?
You can't do that.
Okay, I just wanted to,
You could purchase from other grow operations
Yes.
in Massachusetts to put
Okay.
product in there to start, so that there would be income generation while you do the other build-out.
is that
But you
part of the
can't- you
plan?
can't- It's still federally illegal.
Cross
Yes,
lines.
that's, oh, state lines, yeah.
So it can't come in from
Fair.
another state.
Should
Unless
remember
it's
that.
hemp.
We'll send you the state requirements. You could read them and be really bored and understand the tight box
No,
that we
it's
work
just-
in.
No, but I mean, these are the type of questions that you'll probably get, you know,
No,
me as a
absolutely.
member of a
They're
community.
good, they're good questions, and they're
Yeah.
completely reasonable.
And to go back to your first question, if, let's say, DMA were ever open up another retail location in the state of Massachusetts, there's a kicker in the host agreement that says that if another town gets better terms, then Dudley
yeah.
gets those terms.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't have to worry that, if something changes a year from now, that why didn't we ask for more? There's always that kicker in all these host agreements. So they're pretty uniform statewide now, because that kicker's in all of them, so how can they be different?
Right, so to we press on one point, one more time. So is the plan to have something that's been already grown in Massachusetts sold here while the grow facility gets built? Is that part of the plan?
The plan is to open up the retail storefront to create revenue, sooner than later.
So yes.
Yes,
Okay.
so, yes.
But eventually, would it be just your product, or would you still
Yes,
sell?
eventually, the cultivation will supply to the adult
You'll
storefront.
phase out anybody else's product, or just be,
Absolutely.
and that's oils and everything? Is it,
Yes, that's oils, that's edibles, yes, and flour.
That's it, thank you, guys.
I mean, I read about it.
Thank you.
Mr. Sigenovich?
I hate to echo everyone else, but I do have some questions, but I'm going to wait until after the community outreach
Yeah.
meeting. If the residents are for it, I'm for it. If the residents have questions, I'm going to ask those questions.
Yep.
That's
And
kinda
any
where
of those
I'm at.
questions that after this meeting can get to council, and we can do any homework to answer any questions from a micro sense or even a macro sense, whatever philosophical questions you may have. I mean, put them forth to us. We have nothing to hide. We're gonna present to you guys in truth and how it goes and how this works.
I have no doubt you do, but
Yeah.
we represent the people in this
Sure,
town. And
absolutely.
we need to
Yep.
listen to what they say.
Sure.
And if they have questions, we need to be their voice.
For
And
sure.
if they want to go full speed ahead, then we need to do what they want.
Totally.
We kind of matter, but we don't, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
You're the
tackle-
spokespeople.
tackle Mr.
That's my
Nichols.
opinion. I don't mean to speak for any of you.
Tackle
thank
Mr.
God.
Nichols, and I said this when I met with the town administrator before this meeting, we want to be fully transparent. So, we're not, as Mr. Nichols said, we're not trying to hide anything. We want to answer any questions that the town has so that they feel comfortable with it. You know, this is the first one that's going to be in Dudley. So people are going to have questions, they're going to have concerns, and we want to make sure that everyone's happy with the answers that they get for those.
Well, we were approached by another group a couple months back, and we haven't
Yeah,
gone
did
much
you know
further
that?
down the process.
I was aware.
So,
The one thing I can say is they're not local,
the what?
from here, born and raised.
That is true. And proposed location might not be as good.
You're on the other side of the river, you're an Indian. You're not,
Yeah,
Just
and
letting you
I'll
know.
tell you, the factory's a
Plus, I'm
big
a
selling
pirate,
point. You know, it's because they're gonna build inside of it, No one's gonna know it's really there.
Right.
You're gonna drive by that location.
It is out of the
It's-
way. I'll
It's
agree
gonna
with
look
that.
like it looks today.
Yep.
There'll be some extra lights and some cameras on the outside, but it's gonna look like it looks today. If not even a little bit better, because they're probably gonna put up, flowers and shrubs and trees to make it just, nicer to visually.
It will only be improved, and a couple of minutes ago you said about the different towns and what happened, and what you're talking about. It's a big commitment from even our side and the amount of investment that's gonna take. So we're not looking to jump to town to save a penny here or there. This is a long-term deal, and with that is kind of our commitment back to the community, that it takes a lot. And I don't know this other operation, and I'm sure they're amazing at what they do. We're pretty confident in what we do in the sense, but it takes a real commitment to open a facility of this size and a huge capital expense to do so. So we're looking for a better deal here or move there in another year or 2 years. That's impossible. We're talking about a highly specialized build out that is specific only to what we're here for.
All right, appreciate that. Mr. Johnson?
I was just wondering if there's a frequently asked questions sheet that we can get out before.
And that's what
Part
I
of the
was
homework
saying
you mentioned, right?
earlier.
Yeah.
Please, why don't you ask us there's no such thing as a bad question or a dumb question or whatever it may be. Just get it to us and we will answer any of those questions before, and so maybe you can offer it to the community, or if we have the FAQs, we can, whatever it is, we're able to produce that for you. Just give us, 48 hours or whatever it is. I'll work with council and I'll get it over to you as soon as possible. So that's what I meant by that. Maybe I just didn't say it the right way, but if there's questions that you have that maybe you're going to pass forward to the community, that's what I'm talking about. Like we can preface that or whatever.
All right, we can put it, if you could generate that somehow with the town administrator, we can put it on a website.
Sure.
Like I said before, we have Twitter.
Sure.
And people can interactively,
There's a
send
lot of
questions.
misconceptions.
Yeah. And we want everybody to feel as comfortable as possible in town and allow them to know that what we're bringing to town is going to do nothing but benefit.
Totally.
So that's one of the
Well,
big things.
Mr. Chairman, so
Mr. Massey.
in the business world, we call it WIFM, right? What's in it for me, right? So that everybody understands what the impact, to the town, not just like, okay, we're gonna do this and there's a money component to the town, but
200
what
to
else?
300 jobs,
Right?
24 hours
Stuff
a
like
day.
that, right? So that's the things that people need to understand,
Absolutely.
economic development.
Yeah, the
wise.
AR in there is pretty
Yeah.
incredible, and maybe that we can start with that. Any questions you have on that?
The regulations mandate in the host agreement that there's money set aside that goes to town for impacted areas. So that's already outside the amount that has to go to the town itself. So the state regulates that. Further, we have to put together a quantifiable measure of how we're working with people that were impacted by the marijuana, I guess because they're trying to fight the marijuana craze. So people that had simple possession charges, whether we're hiring them, also making sure that minorities and women are getting jobs, something that's quantifiable. The state wants to follow to make sure that these operations are hitting all the areas that would benefit a town, in a diverse town like this.
Mr. Johnson?
We talked a lot about the inputs that go into the facility. I think part of the frequently asked questions might be, what are the outputs? What are the waste? What's the any chemicals that have to be disposed of? The environmental impact of what you do. Obviously, any farm in town has, an environmental impact, and we'd want to know, what the impact of this facility as well.
That would be part of your further presentation, right? Like, would you do like an on-site, like water treatment to recycle if you wanted to, or to discharge?
Community outreach, we'll put together a presentation, a PowerPoint. And it'll be more in depth than this, and then, based upon what gets raised at the community outreach meeting when we come back, we'll expand upon that so that we can make sure we hit those points again for you, for anyone that's gonna be watching, so that, once again, by the time we get done with that second meeting, hopefully we've hit every area that, you have questions on, the community has questions on, everything's been answered, because we wanna answer all those questions.
Excellent.
I will be particularly interested in the net consumption of water and the percent of water that you will recycle, reuse, and how you would propose to do that. sealed tanks, avoiding evaporation, et cetera, et cetera. That would be a major concern, and just in terms of conservation, from a conservation point of view.
Mr. Joseph, I can speak a little bit on that if you want to hear a little, give me a little input on that. Our facility in Washington is 145,000 square feet. We have zero water waste, zero. We have no runoff, no waste, nothing, no evaporate. Our systems are in place within the grow facility, which we call a canopy, in which we monitor the exact amount of nutrient and water to each plant, every single plant that's in the building, which is in the thousands, and we have zero runoff, none.
So I'll look for specific data for the build-out that you'll be preparing.
Same.
And planning in Dudley.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Any further questions, Mr. Administrator?
No, I just, no. I hope the board takes the opportunity not to waste the time and not ask questions in advance of the public, of the community hearing, because I think that's probably the worst time to ever make a decision at a community outreach hearing.
Right, well, we wouldn't be voting that night, right? We'd probably,
No, but-
we'd agenda it. I know what you're saying.
Just as the board didn't like the idea of having a hurried-up process with previous applicants,
Right, right.
a hurried-up decision because we want to wait for public opinion is also a bad idea. We should have all those questions answered as much as possible in advance.
That's why I said have the documentation out there, the WIFM, all that stuff.
Anybody in
Put it
the,
out there.
anybody in the public have any questions for the applicants? Chief, you good for now? Till the plans come?
The plants can't have.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Won't be a
That would be nice.
surround and drown scenario.
Well, you know what, when you do the, I'm sorry, Chief,
Yeah.
when you do the community meeting, I would urge you to think about making overnight accommodations on site, all right? Because I think there'll be a lot of questions and hopefully not a lot of redundancy.
Chief, can you, so I just have the information?
Chief, can you come up and
Yeah.
talk into the microphone?
Do you want to meet with him after, Chief? Can we get him a name plaque so he feels like he's one of us?
What was the question?
Yeah, people know who he is.
Yeah, can you repeat what you said about something about the fire alarm?
I don't remember, I talked to a couple people, like I'm still learning about it too, but something about the strobe lights or the noise affects the plants.
They're not allowed to be in the cultivation rooms. They can be outside of the cultivation
Right,
rooms.
but it's one or the other, right? It's not both?
No, it's one of, it's one or the other.
Right, so we could have one inside the cultivation area.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm still learning
Yeah.
myself, but like I said, we have like 3 mill structures in town, and this would help bring everything up to
Yeah.
code, and I don't have to worry about fires, and it'd be
kidding.
nice.
Yeah,
And
safety
it brings
first.
money to the town,
It
too.
does have
Absolutely.
pluses, certainly.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So no questions from anybody?
Well, high value agriculture, right, needs all this stuff to.
Very high value agriculture.
We are a right to farm community, so.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
A little different than before, but it's still agricultural.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So can we move forward with going forward with the community
Yes,
outreach?
Yes.
I would
Okay.
stay in touch like you have been with
I'll talk
Mr.
to you.
Ruda.
And I'll get the
and-
abutters list from the assessor.
Yeah, and the selectmen will host that community agreement, right?
And we'll host it.
On a separate night, not a regular
On a
meeting.
separate night, we can probably open the room up here, or,
Yeah, probably I bet. These, both rooms behind open up, we can comfortably seat several hundred people if we have to.
So we'll work with your schedules.
Well, we'll probably,
We can get as many people as we can from our side in here, and then, like I said, we'll just have to come to a date so that we can make sure that the abutters get that information, and it makes its way into the Webster Times within that 14
Right.
days.
and I would prefer, Mr. Administrator, we don't do it on a regularly scheduled meeting.
It should not happen during a
Right.
selectment meeting.
Right, we'll have a separate
Its
night.
own separate meeting.
Right, just one agenda item.
Yep.
and I'd
Sounds
like,
good.
sorry.
Mr. Ruda.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, as questions arise by members of the board, I'm happy to reach out and get the answers to those questions, and then I believe that we should make it an unwritten rule that we share all the questions and the answers to those questions publicly, whether it's in the format of I'll type up, or Michelle will put
Print
together
out.
a synopsis,
Yep.
and we'll make it available here, or we can post it on the website, but every question should be public, every answer should be
Right,
public,
and
so
that's-
there's no surprises.
And as the board members know, and I know you know, Nick, because you serve, we can't share, I can't share my question with two people.
No, yeah.
So we have to be, if anybody has on the,
Meeting.
right, you have to
Yep.
be very,
Meeting law.
very careful with the phrasing and who we share our questions
You
with.
can, like I said, you can reach out to me directly, you could have the town administrator reach out to me, I'll get that information out to the proper entity to get those answers, and then we can either distribute it back to the town administrator, and he can do as he wishes. We could start a form on your website that will list that question with the answer, so that if someone wants to click on a link off the town of Dudley website, they can
Right.
see them. But we can definitely get those answers in front of people so that people become more knowledgeable before the, public hearing.
I think just for the fairness and transparency you talked about, I think nobody should reach out to council directly. Any questions should go through Jonathan. He'll
Gotta go through
respond.
John.
Yeah, town administrator.
So we'll do it that way. And you guys, same thing. Any questions, just,
Good.
he's good about getting information to me, and we spread it as needed. John,
Yeah,
Marcy?
yeah, let's just focus on Webster Times or get the word out. I mean, can we use the board and our Facebook page and the website?
We'll cover everything.
We'll cover all the
Yeah, once the
bases.
date's agreed upon.
I like the idea about the link, that some people can click to read about stuff, so.
Right.
People aren't coming in.
Googling.
Our questions lead to more questions, so we
Yeah.
can get some of those questions answered ahead
Well,
of
there'll be
time.
people who will show up
Narrow it
with,
down.
their, what they wanna say too. You know what I mean?
But we're pretty good about letting everyone have their say,
Yep.
but we're pretty good too about keeping it on point.
Yep.
So, fair enough?
Hey, yes.
Thanks for
Thank you,
coming in.
guys. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for the
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Workplace
We did have a break, let everybody leave now?
Was it something we said?
Mr. Chairman,
Sir?
items C and D under new business
Yep.
have not received, they've been submitted, but they have not received the legal review that you requested at the previous meeting, so,
Right, so without objection, we'll just table them.
correct.
We're still waiting on council?
Waiting on
I
council.
haven't had a chance to get to it.
Table it.
Yeah. All right, departmental communications, highway, buildings, grounds, cemeteries, beaches, parks and rec. Tree warden.
Tree warden. I always say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The chip sealing roads of
Alton Drive.
Canyard, Dudley Hill,
Alton.
Francis, and Alton is complete. There is still some loose stone out there. We attempted twice to sweep it, and the sweeper broke both times, so
Oops.
we're trying to keep it pieced together and get it swept up, but there's still speed restrictions on them roads.
Vinnie, how do we make out with the torrential rain we had in the last month? I know I saw the fire project had to repair their ground like 2 or 3 different times. I know in the past we've had some washaways down like off of Schofield, used to be a trouble spot. I know you guys fixed that catch basin a couple of years, the drain. How'd the roads make out with all this rain we had?
Pretty good. Actually, right out front here, we were losing the stone in the front of the town hall. It was washing into the next door neighbor's yard and almost down to St. Andrew Labola's. And the highway department put a waterway in there, and that worked perfect. And the past couple of heavy rains, I've been monitoring Nichols College to see if there was any issues with the next door neighbor from Nichols.
Oh, yeah.
It's
No problems?
no problems.
Good.
Good.
Other than that,
Okay, thank you.
Things are good?
it's good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vinnie.
Fire and EMS? Good. Water sewer? All set? Board member comments? Mr. Joseph?
I got a few things real quick. One is to let everybody know that let's see, it's this Saturday. Yeah, Triple B, Blessed Backpack Brigade, will be holding their annual toll booth fundraiser at the town line from 9 to 12. And I will be there, and all I ask is that if you've disagreed with any votes that I've taken, please beep so I'll get back off the road and stay out of your way,
Defeating the purpose.
all right? Also, to let you know that the Grange and the Agricultural Commission have come to agreement as to the Apple Fest on October 5th, and there will be set up, and we've reserved the grounds through the town administrator. It'll be our first Dudley Farm Day of what we hope will be many future days, D-A-Y-Z, and people will be set up. People who produce more than they can consume will be set up on the common, the old common, in front of the Congregational Church, and hopefully even further. The third is that we have received, the Backpack Brigade has recently received cases, many cases of adult underwear, sanitary protection. We're trying to do an inventory now, and as soon as we get the inventory done, I say we, I won't do it. Laurie, John, and other volunteers will do it. We'll get that up on our Facebook page, plus the Backpack Brigade's Facebook page, and make it available. I know in the past, we've specifically gotten requests and provided similar products to veterans who need assistance. And Steve Rogerson has been good to coordinate that. And the fourth thing is that I have a problem with the Board of Health rules, regulations, in combination with our existing town bylaw regarding animals. Right now, and I've already talked to the town administrator about this, right now, if somebody wants to appeal a decision, they have to pay a substantial amount of money to get a hearing in front of the ZBA. And that's the way it's set up. And, you know, on the average, probably between the ad they have to put in, this is just an individual person if they want to appeal. Between the article in the Times, notification of all of the abutters, it's going to run them between $300 and $500. And that seems to me to be overkill for someone who wants to have animals within the regulations that the Board of Health is establishing. So, what I've asked the town administrator to do, and I would urge the other selectmen to get behind it, is to have town council come up with a solution. Whether it's change the bylaw, a new bylaw, or some other means, and change it so that if someone wants to appeal denial of a license to have animals under the regulation of the Board of Health new rules, that they can do so simply by notifying and attending a regular Board of Health meeting. And if that can be done, then I think it's not placing an unfair burden on people with the way we've got it set up right now. So I ask that the board support the concept of having town council come up with a solution where that can be accomplished.
Everybody good with that? Else?
Well, obviously, there's no such thing as no cost for anything. So it would be interesting to figure out how to do that. It's worth asking.
I think what we're gonna run into, and I'm just based on what we do for public hearings, Michelle's more versed than we are. And when I was on the planning board, some of those are governed by state statute and state law anyway. They tell you, you have to, like these gentlemen tonight for the community host agreement, they have to do 300 feet for immediate notification through certified. So some of these issues are outside of our control anyway, falls under Mass General Law or under whatever appropriate statute. But as Jay just said, it can't hurt to ask.
Yeah, and
I just don't want to go down the road of changing or accommodating a few when it affects a lot. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if someone, I shouldn't even say it. If someone's got an issue that's already regulated by a bylaw and it's affecting their neighbors, I don't want to bend the rules to make it easier for the offender as opposed to the
So
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
offended.
if I may, we're not talking, the Board of Health rules or regulations they're proposing are not breaking a bylaw. They are rules, regulations, that if adopted, are not subject to Mass General Law in terms of bylaw enforcement. All right, and all I'm asking is that we look at, or we have town council just look at, how to not put a burden, an unfair burden like that on someone who may want to appeal a Board of Health rule. All right, that's all I'm saying, and I think that's reasonable, but that's my own opinion, and I understand that.
I agree with Jay. Jay said it can't hurt to ask, and I agree. Mr. Marcy? Mr. Sigenovich?
I'm good for now, thank you.
No, Paul, nothing.
So
Nothing
just
at
so
all.
I understand, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Joseph, I spoke to him briefly about it. I understand what he's trying to do, which is not to put the unfair burden on the person making the appeal. And the board, well, you verbalized you don't want to put shift the unfair burden from the person appealing it to the person who's paying the taxes for the posting and the no public notice and everything else. So we're trying to find a balance that's,
If it exists. Because it's my understanding too that there's, I don't know how deep the conversation was, Paul, but you guys,
What's the example?
you had a four-way or five with the building inspector, council,
right.
large animal inspector. There's already been some dialogue leading up to,
Relative to the regulations, I don't think we touched on the appeals process.
right, but I'm saying there's been
Yeah.
some dialogue already, so it's not like, this is not
You want to minimize the amount it costs for an appeal, basically, without putting an undue burden on.
on every, yes. Mr. Johnson?
Can we go to, for the minutes, for the
Other stuff.
comments?
Oh, yeah, if you want.
Okay. I didn't know if we want to talk about that some more.
Okay.
Just
Whoa. Give him the gavel.
Just a couple things. Yesterday was a Troop 273 Eagle ceremony for Derek Lemberger and Ricky Bowden Jr. A great ceremony. The troop does it very, very well. So congratulations to them. We could invite them to a meeting, but
We should do that.
Okay, we can bring him in.
No, we should do that.
Yeah, we've done it in the past.
see if they want to come in and do that.
Actually, I believe one year, sorry to interrupt, there was,
For his project, they both.
but there was other people here one time that had been previously awarded Eagle Scout that came back when somebody else was getting recognized, so we can open it up,
About their projects, too.
all of them.
Ask them.
And they were here to
Ask them to
talk
help us.
about their projects, but now that they're
Completed.
Yep.
Yep. Oh, it's excellent.
recognition.
Just one other thing, Troop 273 is having their fall yard sale on September 14th, on Saturday mornings and Thursday evenings down at UTAG. There's collections for drop-offs. We'll try to get that. Did we already post that?
We did, it's posted on,
All right.
it's posted on the Facebook page.
So it's already posted on Facebook, and, obviously, if you have some items that are gently worn and want to get rid of them, Scouts will gladly take them within certain limits, of course.
And there are always deals to be had. Always.
Yes, yeah. That's all I have.
All right, I just want to touch on what Mr. Johnson just said, and I want to publicly thank him for kind of driving us to get those certificates, but I want to thank Michelle, who, in the course of her regular duties, took the time to print them up. We found there was an error, and Michelle took the time to fix them. So once again, Michelle makes us look better than we probably are. I know we publicly thank her all the time, but I just want to thank her again.
Thank you.
And as a chairman, I apologize, the board was remiss. We try to recognize town employees that pass, and recently, John Goslin, who was the highway mechanic for a number of years, passed away a couple of weeks ago. And I speak for the entire board and his family, to his family, when I offer up our sympathies, and again, I apologize, we try to do it in the beginning, but our sympathies to the family of John Goslin for their loss. Mr. Marcy.
Yeah, just one thing, I just wanted to publicly thank Town Administrator, Highway Superintendent, and the resident who finally cleaned up his property on Second Ave. The much improved visibility and safety over there, and also the First Ave, kind of trimming some of those abandoned houses. It's so much better. I can't tell you how scary it was to drive around there. So I've had multiple calls from people saying that's great, so. Thank you.
Mr. Signavis.
I'm good, thank you.
I did have one more. I forgot. I meant to talk, I was in the other day, I meant to talk to the administrator. We have a property on West Main that's, looks like it's abandoned towards the Connecticut line. It's probably 50 to 100 tires in the back. Can we,
Where is it?
I don't want to say it. If you go past Dave's Way, it's a little bit up on the right.
Sure, I can talk to you after, offline,
Right, and
Mr. Chairman.
obviously somebody's holding that note. If we had an issue with it, I remember, I just slightly, we had an issue with a pool a couple of years ago, and we contacted the company, and we told them if we have to take the pool down, we were gonna, it was a
Yeah,
breeding ground. But if
We
have to-
tried for a bylaw to help us along with that. but
Yeah, I
it
know.
Failed miserably.
It didn't go.
We'll do what we can do.
Right, but it's just, it's an eyesore, and it's gotta be some kind of hazard. Anything else on Mr. Administrator, you all set?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
At this time, the board will convene into executive session, not to return to open session. The conclusion of our business in executive will be the conclusion of our business tonight. We're going into the Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, 21, subsection A, subsection 2, to conduct strategy session, highway superintendent, preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel, and/or to conduct contract negotiation with non-union personnel. I so move. Roll call vote.
Paul Joseph, aye.
Jason Johnson, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Tom Marcy, aye.
Harry Siganovich,
And a second. Second it.
In a second. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good night.